Tonight, 4 Blue Jays join baseball's biggest stars at the Midsummer Classic.
Just to see him now carry on that legacy, I mean, it's great for baseball.
The MLB history that's already been made this week by one Jays player and what tonight's festivities mean for baseball fans here in Toronto.
The challenge for Olivia is to move from being the builder of a movement to the builder of a city.
Plus, Toronto prepares for its new mayor taking power tomorrow. What Olivia Chow has in store for the city as Jennifer McKelvey leaves the top office.
It's something that we're able to put a smile onto people's faces throughout hard times, and we're able to support them.
And dozens of new paramedics joined Toronto's service. Why they felt it was so important to help a workforce battling increasing stress and burnout. Hey, good evening. I'm Chris Glover. We begin tonight in Seattle, where baseball's top players are hitting one field tonight. It is Major League Baseball's All-Star Game, and 4 Blue Jays are part of the action.
The call on the field is overturned. The runner's out.
In a really close call there, Blue Jays shortstop Bo Bichette just barely making the out. Jays slugger Vladimir Guerrero Jr. also part of the All-Star action. It's been a great couple of nights for him. He kicked things off last night by winning the Home Run Derby. He is the first Blue Jays player to take that title, and it comes with some inspiring personal history for him as well. Greg Ross brings us reaction from Toronto fans.
Blue Jay fan, thank you. I did it. I'm the champ.
That was Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s message to Jays fans last night from T-Mobile Park after becoming baseball's new home run king.
They're coaching Vladdy through this.
There's a high drive to left field, and that one gets to the second deck.
Guerrero Jr. went deep a total of 72 times in the competition, blasting out 26 homers in the first round.
He is toasty right now. Got into that one, though. And it goes over the wall.
21 in the second round.
Well, he's starting to get on a bit of a groove here again, like flying those balls to left.
And then adding another 25 in the final, beating Randy Arozarena of the Tampa Rays. A proud moment for Blue Jays superfan Harrison Friedman.
Oh man, it's unreal. Like, it's the kind of thing that Vladdy, you knew you could do. You know he's got this generational hitting talent, and to actually see it actually happen, and it's just incredible. It's a representation of the Blue Jays, it's a representation of the city.
It was also an amazing moment for Guerrero Jr.'s family. Back in 2007, he was there to watch his father win the same title, making them the first father and son duo to win the Home Run Derby.
Just to see him now carry on that legacy, I mean, it's great for baseball. It's just to have that continue, that father-son generational passing of the torch. This is a Hall of Famer, a maybe future Hall of Famer. Like, it couldn't happen to a better father-son duo.
Friedman is a Blue Jays season ticket holder. He says despite a slower than usual first half of the season for Guerrero Jr., who has just 13 home runs so far, he hopes this will be the spark the Jays slugger needs to have a big second half.
100%, it's going to. Like, baseball is a game that's all between the ears, right? It's all what's going on up here. It's confidence. He's going to bring that back here. He's going to be knocking them out the park, left, right, and center.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
In 12 hours, Toronto's next mayor will be sworn in. It's been nearly 5 months since Jennifer McKelvey was thrust into the role after John Tory's surprise departure last year. And Ali Chiasson has more on McKelvey's exit and Olivia Chow's historic step into the mayor's office.
It has been a true honor to serve you and to lead this city.
Not that she's counting, but
over the past 144 days, I'm proud to say that we delivered over $913 million in critical funding from the other governments for Toronto.
Outgoing interim mayor Jennifer McKelvey has been reflecting on the job that she was thrown into, stepping in for John Tory after he resigned in haste back in February. And more than the accomplishments, it's these moments that have stuck with her.
The morning phone calls that you get from the fire chief saying that there's been a fatality, or the calls you get from the police chief saying that an innocent bystander in the city has been murdered. We need to continue to invest in safety.
Now, after one last committee meeting, she'll return to her role as city councillor.
I've had a front row seat on watching her go through this period of time, and I can't imagine anybody doing a better job.
Also part of the job is making way for Mayor-elect Olivia Chow. Chow has been taking meetings with community leaders, stakeholders in the private and public sector on issues like housing and mental health.
The challenge for Olivia is to move from being the builder of a movement to the builder of a city.
Adam Vaughn, former city councillor, Liberal MP. Am I missing any other title here?
And also the last politician to beat her in an election. While we have a friendship, it's been strained over the years.
Vaughn says Mayor-elect Chow might be armed with ambition, but council chambers these days is a much different arena.
I think the biggest challenge is the finances. You know, it's one thing to dream about a better Toronto, but to actually put the budget in place.
Things have been building up to this moment when a new era begins at City Hall. There's just one thing that has to happen first, and that's Olivia Chow's swearing-in ceremony, which takes place tomorrow morning. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Next up, a CBC Toronto exclusive. A battle is brewing between Ontario's Auditor General and a well-known GTA developer. It's all over the controversial move to open up the Greenbelt to development. Ryan Patrick Jones has the story.
Ontario's Auditor General Bonnie Lysyk issued a summons to developer Silvio De Gasperis last month. It's part of her official audit into the province's decision to remove almost 3,000 hectares of land from the Greenbelt so that 50,000 homes can be built. Companies controlled by De Gasperis and his brothers own dozens of formerly protected properties, which have now been freed up for lucrative housing development. Much of that land is here in the Duffins Rouge Agricultural Preserve in North Pickering. According to this legal challenge filed by De Gasperis, the summons would compel him to give an interview under oath and provide documents. Possible topics for discussion include how the government identified his company's lands for removal from the Greenbelt. De Gasperis' challenge hopes to block or delay the Auditor General's summons, claiming her request is overly broad and that she doesn't have the information she seeks. He also questions her jurisdiction to force him to testify.
Hard to say.
This law professor says the Auditor General does have the authority to compel private citizens to provide information, but Lysyk will have to show the court she's acting properly.
The Auditor General is going to really have to prove two things. One, that it's an appropriate audit, and number two, assuming it is an appropriate audit, that the person being compelled to testify, in this case, a private citizen, is appropriately there and has information that's required.
Lysyk says she can't comment while the audit is in progress, but she hopes to table her report before her term expires in early September. The audit was launched in January at the request of all three opposition party leaders. Some reacted today to the developer's court challenge.
The public has a right to know the decision-making process the government went through, and I believe that the people who are benefiting from this have information that is important to the public process.
He stands to gain, certainly financially, from the carve-up of the Greenbelt by Mr. Ford and his government. And we are interested in, what value that has to the people of this province. What conversations took place.
De Gasperis hasn't responded, but a lawyer for TAC Developments told me in an email that the scope and goal of the Auditor General's inquiry is unclear to them, and that the vast majority of TAC's land holdings in these areas were acquired more than 20 years ago, before the Greenbelt was created. A spokesperson for Ontario's housing minister says the government is cooperating with the audit. Ryan Patrick Jones, CBC News, Toronto.
Now to a story about our community coming together after a tragedy on our streets. A GoFundMe page has been set up for the 6-year-old girl who died after being struck by a car near High Park. It was set up by a family friend with a goal of $100,000. The collision happened last Wednesday just before 4:30 in the afternoon. A white Honda CR-V was traveling westbound on Dundas near High Park when the child suddenly ran onto the road and got struck. She was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries, where she later died. Police say charges are not expected to be laid in that case. Speed cameras have popped up across the city as one way to try to make streets safer in Toronto, and new research is showing, by some metrics, they're working. The study was conducted by Sick Kids and Toronto Metropolitan University. Data was collected over a 3-year period, showing that speeds have significantly reduced. The results show there's been an overall 80% drop in the amount of drivers exceeding the speed limit during that time. A cooler feel in the air as we look live at the city skyline tonight. Colette Kennedy is here with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, the severe thunderstorm warning has now ended, but it certainly was an unsettled end to the workday.
Yeah, Chris, it was a pretty busy late afternoon and early evening. And in fact, it started earlier in the afternoon for parts of southwestern Ontario and into cottage country. Some of the fuel for those storms coming from the heat, that's one component, but also that humidity, because we had those humidex values in the mid-30s in most cases. And so with that cold front, that provided that lift, and we get into those stronger storms. We can breathe a sigh of relief now through the overnight hours, quieter conditions, mostly clear skies, and then the clouds become a bit variable into tomorrow, meaning at times more cloud and then sunshine and then cloud back. But I've stopped this here at 11 a.m. because it's a little different story here towards Windsor, Chatham, Kent. You will have some lighter rain showers in the morning hours, and then towards Sarnia to the afternoon, a pocket of dry conditions, and then some heavier rain moving in. Now that is not expected. I don't expect it to reach the GTA till tomorrow towards the overnight hours, so we won't worry about that through the daytime. 15 the low tonight, and a more comfortable 25 for the high on Wednesday.
Comfortable indeed. All right, we'll talk to you again a little later on in the show. Thanks, Colette. Here at CBC Toronto, we've been telling you about the challenges parents with autistic children have been facing, including the largest children's treatment centre in Ontario no longer offering core clinical services for autistic youth. Parents and advocates also say there are huge problems with the province's funding model. Talia Ricci has that story.
Sean McIntosh describes his 15-year-old son, Akito, as the world's happiest kid. He's autistic and nonverbal, and accessing the right one-on-one therapies is life-changing.
So we received our funding, and we're unfortunately in a situation right now where we have funds which have been issued to us, but we're struggling to find professionals who will take our money.
McIntosh and other parents say that's because the capacity just isn't there. They have tens of thousands of dollars from the province to spend, but they're facing wait lists and coming across agencies that are cutting back on programs.
Unfortunately, a lot of the agencies in our region have opted out of the pay-for-service model, and it's really a challenge to find resources now that a number of these agencies where a large number of those resources have gravitated to are no longer available.
This is something that we flagged before the program started rolling out, and it's coming to fruition now. And what's very concerning is that so few children have core funding in hand presently, and we're already seeing capacity issues across the entirety of the province.
We asked the province about this specific problem, these parents who say they have all of this money to spend and nowhere to spend it. The Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services didn't address that concern. It said the government's combined total of support for autism programs amounts to over $1.5 billion, and said that funding includes money for building capacity and boosting the workforce.
If you give a person who is starving $1,000, but there's no food available, there's no place for them to actually buy the food, you haven't solved the problem. The barriers that are being put up by this funding model are just too difficult. People don't have access to the services, interventions, therapy programs that they need.
Including Akito, who also needs physiotherapy for an issue related to autism. But that's not on the list of services he can access under the Ontario Autism Program.
Clearly something is broken in the model, and as a parent, I don't understand what it is.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
The gratification that you get from helping people, especially in being in the community, having that face-to-face interaction with others, and you get to do that for a living, for me, that's very satisfying.
Dozens of new paramedics graduate in Toronto tonight. After the break, we'll take you to the ceremony in Leslieville to show you why, despite the many challenges in the industry, so many decided it was the career for them. Welcome back. Burnout and work stress are major factors in a lot of professions lately, but post-pandemic, people working in emergency services like paramedicine are really feeling it. Despite the strain, tonight dozens of new paramedic graduates officially joined the ranks. Anam Khan went to find out what's motivating them.
Sajid Ajmal knows what his new job will require, but for him, it's worth it.
It's something that we're able to put a smile onto people's faces throughout hard times, and we're able to support them.
The city says Ajmal is one of 45 paramedics and 16 emergency dispatchers graduating tonight at the Paramedics Training Academy in Leslieville. These grads are joining about 1,500 paramedics already working across the city in a field plagued by stress and pandemic burnout.
We need to do everything we can to not only attract people, but also to retain them. So it's an ongoing effort to try and show them that Toronto's a great place to work.
As recently as the spring, the union representing paramedics said it was seeing a resignation a week. With the city short about 100 paramedics, those working left working overtime. But this doesn't scare new grad Kelvin Miller. The recruit says he knows exactly what he's getting into from on-the-job training.
The gratification that you get from helping people, especially in being in the community, having that face-to-face interaction with others, and you get to do that for a living, for me, that's very satisfying.
For many, choosing this profession is sentimental.
My mom actually has an autoimmune disease, and when I was younger, she had a brain aneurysm, and I had to call 911. And from there, the paramedics came, and they honestly reassured my family so well.
Toronto Paramedic Services says tonight is about celebrating these new employees. But it's also about sharing their journeys to inspire other young people.
We're going out to the colleges, we're talking to students as they're coming through, letting them know what Toronto Paramedic Services has to offer.
In 2019, the city launched a 5-year strategy to add more paramedics to the city's service. And the acting paramedic chief says seeing these reinforcements graduating into their ranks shows it's working. Anam Khan, CBC News, Toronto.
Back to Colette now for a look at the long range. And Colette, a couple of cooler days on tap after that sticky weather we've been having. Tell us where we go from here.
Sure. So that cold front that's moved through and changed the wind direction, also cutting that humidity. It brought the storms, but now we get a little bit of relief. So less muggy as we go into tomorrow, but the temperature's still mild, a little below seasonal for this time of year. It'll just be a nice little break. Wednesday through the overnight for Toronto, we'll see some rain pushing in, probably late evening, like thinking around 10 o'clock, 10 to 11, and then kind of through the overnight and gone before the morning. I'll show you the timing on that. But for southwestern Ontario, do know that you're going to see this during the day tomorrow. It's not going to wait until tomorrow night. And then we get into a 5-day forecast with very typical stuff. And what I mean by that is a little bit of an up and down with the temperatures, but more so, you know, multiple days where we get into a chance of seeing some thunderstorms bubbling up because the humidity, although it's down tomorrow, will be coming back. And as it does, that can lead to that with some of the daytime heating. So looking at tomorrow morning should be okay for your morning commute there in southwestern Ontario, then lighter showers, and then perhaps a little break before some heavier stuff moves in. Now, the line of this looks like some of the heaviest will be from Sarnia over towards the Niagara region. But still, knowing that in between you'll get caught in this as well. London, probably towards Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo with some of the heavier amounts of rainfall. It moves in overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning through the GTA. Then we get late day clearing and just a few isolated showers could pop back in to the situation. I'll run this through so you get an idea of where some of that heavier rain is. So maybe as much as 30 millimeters Hamilton or close to London, and possibly up towards 30 to 40 through the Windsor, or even that corridor between Windsor towards Sarnia there. Overnight temperatures, quite the range we'll be seeing with some cooler numbers coming in behind the cold front, especially just a bit further to the north. And then tomorrow's high, Thursday's high, mid-20s. But that humidity is going to start coming back up. Looks like a nice day Friday. Don't get too worried, Chris, about the weekend yet, because this is where we get into some of just that typical stuff we tend to see bubbling up in the summertime.
All right, Colette, sounds good. The Honda Indy is taking place this weekend and shutting down some major roads in the process. Closures will begin tomorrow at noon, and that's when southbound Strawn from Fleet Street to Lakeshore Boulevard West will be shut down. Later in the day, Lakeshore West from Strawn to British Columbia Drive will close. They are scheduled to reopen Sunday at 11 p.m. Another big event launching today. The Toronto Caribbean Carnival kicked off at Nathan Phillips Square, and Dale Manukduk has a preview of what's to come during the month-long festival.
You know what that music signals. Carnival is back.
I wait all year for this time of the year. You know, like the festival, carnival season is something that I grew up in. It's near and dear to my heart and to the heart of my community.
There are over 750,000 people of Caribbean descent in Canada, the majority in Toronto. The music, food, costumes are all part of a celebration of culture that means so much to so many.
It goes way back in my heritage, you know, and like I got like 4-generation family that, you know, that was involved in the you know, Carnival, Carabana and stuff like that, so it does mean a lot to me.
Everything, the food, the movement, you know, everybody togetherness. It shows the spirit of us. What we feel within, we bring it out.
Dozens of dancers who will take part in the Grand Parade took to the stage to preview their intricate, colorful costumes.
Just seeing the audience and how excited they were just reminded us how important this festival is and just celebrating Caribbean culture.
It was beautiful because Carnival is in my country, it's in my culture, it's in my blood. I love it. It's a part of me. So for me, I felt proud.
Back in the days, we called Carabana, remember? And then the Carnival. I've been jumping up for so many years, and this is always my summer highlight.
And while it means a lot to people with deep connection to the history of Carnival, and it is for them to have a safe space to be themselves, it's also for everyone.
This Carnival is for all of Toronto, all of Canada, and in fact all of the world, because that's who come to see our Carnival. 35% of the people who come to our events come from outside of North America. 45% comes outside of Toronto.
The festival attracts more than 1 million people, including nearly 200,000 tourists. It brings in an estimated $338 million into the Ontario economy each year. This year's festival includes the Junior King and Queen Showcase this weekend, the Junior Parade on July 22nd, the King and Queen Showcase goes August 3rd, and the Grand Parade on August 5th. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Summer is such a blast in the city, isn't it? All right, that is our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching, and we're going to leave you now with one last look at some of the amazing costumes that dazzled at Carnival's kickoff today. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.